All right, and welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And today is going to be a slow day for us. We're just going to review a few trailers. The first one is going to be Napoleon, which dropped 2 weeks ago. And during that time, your Moviness, you were in New York for a family member's graduation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was my cousin's high school graduation, so was very happy I got up there. The journey was a little bit concerning as coming back, I had my flight canceled and had to rebook it, and it was kind of a nightmare, but I'm glad to be back home, and I'm glad I was able to, kind of share that experience because he's he's my youngest cousin. So he is kind of the last of us to kind of go through, you know, hitting those education milestones.
Gotcha. And you say he's going to Binghamton, right?
Don't quote me on that, but yes, that sounds about right.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
yep. So, like I said, we'll be starting in less than a month. So,
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because back to school starts, middle of next month, right?
yeah. I mean, it feels weird. It's kind of flies under the radar when you're not thinking about it anymore. So, yeah, that's gonna be starting in less than a month. So,
What's he going to be majoring in? Has he decided yet?
that's a good question. I want to say he mentioned business management, so similar to same thing that I actually went to school for, business management. So I guess great minds think alike is what I'm going to tell myself. But yeah, I believe it's going to be for business management.
Well, hopefully he has a friend who's working, at a call center, and he gets him a job. He, knocks out of the park, and then after a year, he gets promoted to supervisor, and he stays there for 5-6 years.
Wow, that's a very specific story you have there. I don't know why that sounds like very, very specific. Very interesting.
It happened to two people that we know very well. So I just figured, it'd be good to mention it.
Yes.
But today we're gonna review the trailer for Napoleon. And as I was watching this trailer, I remember a conversation you and I had when we were at a friend's house a few months ago. You said that you developed a fascination with the Napoleonic Wars. Is that right?
Yeah, I do find Napoleon to be a very interesting historical character. Obviously, I'm not nearly as worldly with my history knowledge as maybe someone else that's talking with me right now, but I do find it very interesting, and I'm very excited to see the trailer. I did see it once when it dropped, but I'm curious to see how a second viewing goes, and see how I feel about it as we kind of go through that process.
Yeah, because I was going to say, out of all the trailers we're going to take a look at today, I think this might be the one. I think it's safe to say this might be the one you're probably most excited about. So,
yeah, that's an understatement. So it's probably the one I'm most interested in by far compared to some of the other ones that I've been seeing out there. So yes, I am very interested to see about Napoleon.
All right, so let's get into this here. By the way, I was doing some research about the song that was used in this trailer. Apparently, it's Radiohead.
Interesting.
It's a national anthem. It's from one of their albums from the 1990s. So, but it's like a slow down version of it.
I see. Interesting. I like how he's crowning himself.
Yeah, it's an allusion to that painting.
Yes.
No doubt you've seen the chaos in the streets. We must make an example, or France will fall.
What would you do with this assignment?
The good old French razor.
A whiff of grape shot right there.
Successes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Radiohead.
What is this costume you have on?
This is my uniform.
Vanessa Kirby, right?
Yeah. I didn't recognize her at first, but
I did not
Yeah.
recognize her first either until now. I just realized it.
Napoleon.
As the course of my life just changed. Napoleon.
I'm destined for greatness.
Okay, take a little bit of liberties there in the Battle of the Pyramids.
Is a king.
Definitely did not take literally place at the pyramids.
Shall we vote?
This vermin has held the world hostage with his egotism and his lack of simple good manners.
You think you're great. You are just a tiny little brute that is nothing without me.
All of Europe is uniting forces against me.
What's the outcome of this if you don't succeed?
Your Majesty, we are discovered.
Good. I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
That's a brutal way. I could not imagine dying that way.
now I was trying to figure out which battle that came from, but I still haven't been able to find out which battle involved a bunch of Austrians rushing across an iced lake and then getting shot at. But it's that's just a minute detail. So
Yeah.
can I just say I'm glad that Joaquin Phoenix is not doing a French accent, because that would totally just take me out of the moment right there.
I find it very interesting. Having Joaquin Phoenix, like, I just feel like, as much as I like him, right, and I think that Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor. I loved him in The Joker. I just don't know. Like, he just feels maybe just a little bit too old to play Napoleon.
Yeah, and I texted you the day it came out. It looks like they've got the ages reversed, because Josephine's supposed to be the older woman in the relationship. But I mean, if you look at if you look at their ages, I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is what, 9 years older than her? She was born 88.
Oh, she's just a year older than me, so
Yeah, and she's a year younger than me. So
yeah.
But-
I mean, it is just like I said. Like, you have. I mean, I think there's going to be liberties taken, and it doesn't, like I said, drag me out a whole lot with it. I just think it's maybe a little bit weird, especially in the younger years, how they're going to portray him. I'm not going into it expecting it to be historically accurate. We've seen Ridley Scott do interesting things with like something like The Gladiator.
Yeah.
So I'm not really counting on historical accuracy being a very key component of this. But I mean, it looks very interesting. I mean, it definitely looks like a ton of effort put into this. And if Joaquin Phoenix could give a good performance, I'm definitely in on this. It could be a very good thing, especially with Oppenheimer out, getting some really big biopics coming out in this year. So
yeah. Well, I was going to say too, because I think I think mainly because of the Joker, where he's playing this complex character. I mean, it kind of stands to reason why Ridley Scott would cast him as Napoleon.
oh yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, Napoleon
and
was a pretty
also-
complex character, and his legacy is complex too. Because my family, they a lot of them live in France, and a lot of them came from French speaking countries. Their view of Napoleon is much different from what people in the Anglophone countries would have. So I know in the U.S. and England, he's typically portrayed as this like egomaniacal tyrant who went around going to war and destroying half of the continent. Whereas from a French perspective, he's seen as a guy who reformed the country, who brought the civil code, who updated the education system, and he pretty much brought the ideas of the revolution to fruition, and actually made France a much stronger country as a result, even though he ended up getting deposed a few years later. So I think I think this is pretty much right up his alley, and I think and frankly, I'm very much to see how how he goes from being this like young artillery lieutenant to the Emperor of France, because
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of emotions that you're going through as you're going on that journey to literally becoming the head of of Europe.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I'm very curious about is obviously Napoleon has a whole lot to him. So I'm gonna be very interested to see like what Ridley Scott focuses on, because there's a ton of story to tell, and for it to be just a single movie, I'm curious what points are going to emphasize. We saw some stuff with the French Revolution happening. Obviously, we saw the tours. We see him when he's in Egypt. So I mean, there's so much you have to cover with Napoleon. I'm very curious where he stops the movie or how he helps do that.
Well, I was reading somewhere where Ridley Scott said he was mainly just covering his ascension to power. So he's not covering his entire campaign, up until he abdicates and is sent to exile. I think he's just getting up to the point where he makes himself Emperor of France.
Okay. Well, like I said, that's good. I'm glad to see that he's kind of, excuse me, he's kind of constricting that to a certain part of a certain time in the story, because there is so much of it you have to look at, and I'd be very hard pressed to imagine too many people that could be like, let me tell you about everything with Napoleon in a 2.5-hour movie. So props that he had a very clear direction with what he wanted to help cover when it came to talking about Napoleon.
I mean, it's a much better choice than what Oliver Stone did with Alexander. I mean,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the first move that came to mind. Of you're trying to bite off a little bit more than you could chew, and it can really kind of hurt your movie going experience.
So let me
doing that.
So let me ask you this. I mean, do you think it's a good idea to cover the rise of Napoleon, because even within that period of time there's so much going on, because I mean you've got to include what Napoleon was doing during the French Revolution. You got to include him meeting Josephine. You got to include the battles he's fought, and as and you're probably aware of this. Like, he fought a lot of battles even before he became emperor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a whole lot of territory to cover. I mean, we did see the siege of Toulon, where the French forces successfully kicked out the royalists, and then obviously we saw the Battle of the Pyramids. So those are going to be the two big ones that that come to mind. But even then, that's still a lot to process.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there's clearly a lot that he's going to have to cover. So I'll be interested to see how he's helping tell that story.
Well, the movie comes out in November, and they said it's going to come out in theaters first, and they're going to put on Apple streaming, or Apple TV, I should say. But I think it's one of those movies that would definitely be worth watching, just because it looks so interesting. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I kind of wish that maybe the format would be different, because I think Ridley Scott can tell a great story. It would have been interesting knowing that it's going to the Apple Plus. I mean, would it be interesting to do like a mini series as opposed to a movie, and then you have more opportunity to maybe go through more of Napoleon? So I guess we'll see how concise he could keep the story. But all time watching, I was thinking like, dang, this would be cool, like a Band of Brothers type of mini series, where you kind of have this like kind of very interesting kind of going through Napoleon, maybe seeing him at different times, and kind of seeing him depose and then the coming back. I think there's a lot there. So I guess only time will tell. I guess in November we'll have a much clearer picture of how much they get into Napoleon.
Well, you remember when The Last Duel came out and it didn't do so well in box offices? He pretty much blamed Millennials for not going to see it.
And Millennial.
Yeah, damn those people. Like, anybody born, between the 1980s and early 90s, damn them. Like, seriously.
Yeah,
But
it could have been that there was like maybe it was just too boring, right? I mean,
I
just like how-
saw the movie, and yeah,
I did too.
I mean, there's nothing. I mean, there's really nothing to pick from it. I mean, it's just one huge snooze fest right there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's maybe other reasons that the movie did not do as well as he was hoping. So
So do you think this is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of question, but do you think he might, rescind his gripe against Millennials if this movie does pretty good?
I would hope so. I mean, I feel like dealing with the fact that it's Napoleon obviously has a much broader appeal. Using so that I think that should help get some people out there, and I think we're seeing a lot of success with Oppenheimer coming out right now as we're talking. So with that being out, and that's, I would say, at least critically a success, box office wise. A little too early to tell, but I think right now we have enough justification to be like, hey, there is definitely an audience that's interested in something like in these biopics of like these really big historical figures. So hopefully there's a good showing with it, and you can only hope that Napoleon kind of does a little bit better than the Last Duel in telling its story.
Excellent. Well, that was our review of Napoleon. Let us know in the comments what you think, if this is a movie that you'll definitely go and see, or if it's a pass for you.